Alaska is a state of the United States. It was incorporated as the 49th state of the United States on January 3, 1959. The word Alaska is derived from the Aleut Alyeska language, meaning vast or great country or territory. On March 30, 1867, the American Senate approved a treaty by which they acquired Alaska from the Russian Empire, and the treaty was signed by U.S. President Andrew Johnson. In the pages of history, it is known as the Alaska Purchase. Russia wanted to sell its state of Alaska because living in Alaska was difficult. Moreover, no natural resources had yet been discovered in Alaska, although many valuable natural resources were discovered later. Alaska will be invaded by the British in the event of a Russo-England war. Fear entered Russia's mind. Russia's primary work in Alaska was the fur trade and evangelization. The area of Alaska was 586,412 square miles, 1.5 million 18,000 square kilometers. With the purchase of Alaska, this huge amount of territory was added to the American territory, and the size of America increased. America bought this territory for only $7.2 million US. According to 2016 calculations, the current market price of $7.2 million US at that time is only $105 million US. The majority of the American people agreed to the purchase of Alaska, but some people call it Seward's folly. The reason for this was that Mr. William H. Seward was the then Secretary of State of America, who was called Rashtra Sakhyatri in Bengali, and he was more interested in the purchase of Alaska. But the decision to purchase Alaska was praised by other peoples because it weakened both England and Russia and allowed America to monopolize trade in the Pacific region. Alaska was first incorporated as a territory of the United States. Later, after World War II, Alaska was granted statehood in 1959. England is one of the 5 superpowers in the world today. But now America is at the top of the list of superpowers. But England was the world's top superpower at that time. England was defeated by Russia in the Crimean War, and after the defeat, Russia needed money. After the California gold rush, it became clear that if gold was found in Alaska, the United States and Canada would gas the Russian Empire's Alaska. And if there is a new England-Russia war in the future, then England will take over Alaska. Keeping these things in mind, the Russian Emperor Alexander II thought it would be appropriate to sell Alaska in exchange for money. He started negotiations with both England and America. First, proposals were sent to the British Empire to purchase Alaska in exchange for money. But at one point, due to some reasons, the British Prime Minister Lord Palmerston rejected this proposal. He thought to occupy Alaska by military force instead of spending money. Russia then sent a proposal to America, hoping that if America were there, England would abandon plans to go to war and do anything by force. But then America wanted to retreat because Washington was very worried about the American Civil War. So America made no deal. But after a letter from the younger brother of the Russian emperor, the holiday changed. America started negotiations in 1859-60. A senator offers Russia $5 million as the price for Alaska. But the situation gets murkier. U.S. President James Buchanan's popularity began to decline and a movement against his decisions began. Therefore, American high officials were not interested in making any agreement on Alaska until the new president came to power. On the other hand, what America was very worried and afraid about, the American Civil War started. Meanwhile, problems also arise in Russia. Russia started a conflict with Peru and Chile. Russia borrowed 15 million pounds of pure currency from the Rothschilds, the famous Rothschild family, at 5% annually. But when it came time to return the money, Russia could not return the money. Time passes. Eventually, the internal turmoil in both countries subsided. The Union Army won the American Civil War. Then the Russian emperor again sent ambassadors to America about the sale of Alaska. Behind it was the visionary vision of the Russian emperor. It became impossible for the Russians to defeat the British Empire. The situation was such that, far from protecting the Russian Empire and colonies from the British, it seemed difficult to protect the mainland of the empire. So Russian Emperor Alexander II wants to sell Alaska to America. By doing this, it was possible to corner and weaken the British. Because by doing this, British Columbia, still a part of England, and the strong British naval base could be watched by America, and by this the Russian Empire would be somewhat protected. America did not disappoint the Russian Emperor. Secretary of State Mr. Negotiations and negotiations continued throughout the night, led by Seward, between Russian imperial and American officials. The all-night negotiations ended successfully, and the two countries signed a treaty at 4 a.m. on March 30, 1867. A new chapter named Alaska Purchase was born in the pages of history. Many fortunes changed. Alaska was priced at $7.2 million. That means $4.74 per square kilometer of land. The then current amount of $7.2 million is only $105 million as of 2016 market value. America had many plans behind buying a large and friendly territory like Alaska. One of the reasons and plans is the turmoil of the just-ended Civil War, the loss, the anger of the opponents losing in the Civil War, rebuilding the war-torn country, etc. The issue of purchasing Alaska was enough to divert people's attention from the sensitive domestic issues. Russia used to call Alaska as Alaska. According to some ancient documents, Russia was called Aliaxa. When America bought this valuable land at the price of water, its name got its present form, which means America named it Alaska. The decision to purchase Alaska was supported by the majority of the American people. U.S.-Russia relations became friendly for a time through the purchase agreement. But because the state of Alaska was deplorable at the time, a large number of Americans were against its purchase. A handful of critics criticized the purchase agreement with titles such as Seward's Folly, Walrussia, and Seward's Icebox. A joint military parade of the American-Russian Army in front of the governor's house in Sitka, one of the largest cities in newly sold Alaska, on October 18, 1867. The imperial flag of the Russian Empire descends in time with the artillery fire. The American flag rises. The sound of cannon sounds like victory. A beautiful description of the event is found in the writings of a blacksmith named T. Alund. It was published in Finland. I read the whole description, but did not write it because it would be too long. The flag ceremony was completed with flag hoisting and flag lowering. Then began the last part of the funeral of Russian Alaska. Russian, Captain Alexei Alexeyevich Pesharov said, General Rousseau, by authority from His Majesty, the Emperor of Russia, I transfer to the United States the territory of Alaska. General Lovell Rousseau, American, accepted the territory. Thus ended Russian imperialism in Alaska. Russian forts, log houses in Alaska were handed over to America. Most of the tens of thousands of Russian families and citizens living in Alaska decided to return to their homeland, Russia. However, some Russian people did not leave Alaska. Sometime after the purchase of Alaska, America enjoyed great economic success in Alaska. Other attractions of the Alaska purchase were fisheries, fur trade, and leather trade. Only a few years after the purchase of Alaska, America made a lot of money by exporting seal skins. Those skins were sent to London, the capital of England. However, this trade did not last long as America captured 150 British ships, and this led to conflict between the two countries. A large amount of natural resources were discovered in the U.S.-owned Alaska. Among them are forest resources, plantation, animal resources. Moreover, several gold mines, some oil wells were discovered. Many of us watch Gold Rush Alaska on the Discovery Channel. Therefore, America lost by buying Alaska. This is wrong.